jump directly to the second part of this conference with the first speaker of this second part of afternoon about wildlife and human interaction. So we are pleased to receive Dr. Rehan from Pakistan. He's assistant professor at the University of Veterinary and Animal Science in Lahore. And today, as his main topic of research are about wildlife crime and conservation, he wants to present a specific topic of online wildlife crimes in Pakistan. So Dr. Haq, when you feel ready, we are happy to listen to your presentation.
Thank you so much, Nicholas.
Thank you for joining today.
Sharing. You're more than welcome. I hope you can see the screen, right?
Yes.
Perfect. So good morning, afternoon, late afternoon, or night, from wherever you're joining. Good morning, evening, afternoon to everyone. It's very good to see you all, and thank you so much, City University, for having me. So the topic, I'm Rehan, and I'm an assistant professor, as Nicholas has already introduced me, at the Department of Wildlife and Ecology in the University of Veterinary and Animal Sciences. Before joining this, I did my PhD from Asian Institute of Technology, Thailand. So some of the wildlife issues that we were facing, because my research was in Thailand, so they are pretty much same. Some issues, they are global, and this issue on which I'm going to talk today, it starts from the human dimensions of wildlife and online wildlife crimes. I believe that it is not limited to one country or one region, and it's a global issue, because now, same like in this conference, that we are connected from different places. On the internet, we are connected, and everyone belongs to one place. So my topic for today is human dimensions of wildlife and case study of online wildlife crimes in Pakistan. But before jumping into our study, I'll start with the basics, because it's just the start of a new session. So the very first thing that we should know before jumping into it, that what is human-animal interaction? The very definition of this thing, according to which it's a broad term which refers to any manner of relationship or interaction between a person and non-human animals. And as you can see in this picture, that this thing is happening for long. We are always surrounded by animals, and it can be companion animals, it can be the utility animals, and it can be the wild animals. So we were always surrounded by animals. Although people have lived with them for ages, for centuries, but the research in this field of human-animal interaction is relatively new, and especially when it comes to the wild animals. And most research is based on the companion and utility animal. So if, just for an example, I did a simple Google image search on human-animal interaction, and the things which I found, you can see here. So it is mostly dominated by the companion animals, and this companionship, or this our relationship, have give rise to a specific human-animal bond. We love our pets, thanks to the veterinarians, that the animals which were just outside for our gardening and gardening purpose, now they are our family members. They are sharing our home with us. So this specific thing, the human-animal bond, is only a one component of EACHK, which is defined as the mutual beneficial relationships between people and animals that influence the health and well-being of both. Most of us know the feeling of when you're being welcomed by your dog or a cat in your home when you're entering your home. And thanks to the veterinarians, that after the invention of the rabies, and later when there was control on parasites, now we can share our homes with those animals which were initially just for our gardening purposes. But when we talk about the human-wildlife interaction, again, before I would like you to think that what is wildlife? So when we say that something is wild, we can say that an individual or animal that exhibit uncontrollable behavior. This is the wild for us. And that's why now the people, they are changing the word wild animals to the free-ranging animals, because this thing itself, the definition of the wild, is creating problems. So wildlife for humans, it is often referred as a resource, and the resources are goods and services that have values for humans. And the values, when it comes to the values, those values can be beneficial values, and they can also harm values, and same goes for the wildlife. So when we talk about the positive values which are being provided by wildlife, these are the benefits that wildlife it provides to humans. So according to Giles in 1978, those values can be divided broadly into the physical utility, is the use of wildlife for food or clothing before the invention of the agriculture or having the livestock. Mostly people, they were feeding on the wild animals. The second benefit that wildlife provides us is the monetary benefit. These are the benefits from the wildlife resources that can at the recreational benefits. For example, the communities, they gain economic benefit when hunters and tourists, they spend their time in those areas, and the recreational value can be viewed as the enjoyment the people, they receive from recreation activities. Next, we have a huge value, that is the ecological values. Their importance in maintaining the ecosystems. Imagine if we just remove one species from the ecosystem, the whole ecosystem will get disturbed. Next, we have the existential value, which is the potential of becoming more valuable in the future. So here the wildlife is not only saving us, but also our future generations. And next, we have the historic values that stems from mankind's fear for change. We are uneasy about how our actions are changing the world. So wildlife values are enormous. At the same time, wildlife, as I mentioned earlier, they also have negative values. And when we talk about the negative values of wildlife, these are the casualties, depredation of wildlife to people, the livestock, which is often predated by some wild species, the crop damage, agricultural crop damage, and different invasive species which can destroy our nature. So overall, if we make a comparison between the positive and negative values, the positive values are significantly much more than the negative values. But when I did a simple Google image research about the human-wildlife interactions, these were the pictures which I got. It was more dominated by the negative values. And if you can recall the previous picture which I shared with you, in which we Googled about the human-animal interactions, there was all happy faces of people with their dogs, with their cats. But if we look at the human-wildlife interactions, the picture is totally different. But at the same time, if we look at the positive values, they are significantly more. So it means that there is something that this internet is lying to us, or it is showing a totally different picture. And it is actually depicting that human-animal interactions are equal to human-wildlife conflict. Sorry, human-wildlife interactions is equal to the human-wildlife conflict. So then we need to see that why there is this biasness. And to understand this biasness, we need to jump into the human dimensions of wildlife, which is defined as that how people, they value wildlife, how they want wildlife to be managed, and how they are affected or affect wildlife management decisions. And to understand the human dimensions of wildlife, we need to know the psychology behind the the wildlife management strategies. So initially, wildlife laws were introduced in the British colonies, where each and every wildlife was under the British rule. They can go to any property and they can hunt any animal. Afterwards, when they left those areas, those wildlife laws, instead of the royals, they were changed to people. That now the people, they are the custodians of their wildlife, which is present on their land, and they can hunt the wildlife. Later on, the same laws, they were evolved into the North American model of wildlife conservation. I will just tell you the first 3 points of NAM, and according to which the wildlife is a public trust. It is owned by the public and held in trust for the benefit of the public. Secondly, wildlife is managed for the benefit of as many people as possible. And thirdly, allocation of wildlife to citizen is made by law. Laws are used to decide when, where, and by whom wildlife can be killed or taken. So the basis for this model is that wildlife is a public trust and should be managed under the public trust doctrine. But there were some people who were opposing this kind of model, and they came with the compassionate conservation model. There was an alternative to the NAM for the management of wildlife and is advocated by people who were concerned about animal welfare. CCM seeks to improve the quality of life of all animals, including the companions, utility, and wild animals. They were worried about the suffering of individual animals and seek to reduce harm to wildlife by expanding human population. So it was an alternative model. And later, the free market model, it also opposed the NAM and PTT. It takes a position if the resource is owned by everyone, is actually owned by no one. And it can lead to the tragedy of the commons, where resources will be overexploited by people who are all acting out to their own personal self-interests. So here you can see that all these models were mainly dominated, and they were created for the benefit of humankind and not for the wildlife. And now when we are in the age of internet, the same wildlife is caught in the web. Internet has revolutionized our life, and here I'm sitting in Lahore, Pakistan, giving a presentation in Hong Kong. It has also provided increased opportunities for the criminals to operate and taking advantage of unregulated and impersonal nature of transactions. So if we look at the evolution of internet, we can see that it started in 1990s. In 1993, there were only 10 million people who have access to internet. And in 2002, there were 670 million people with access to internet. And in 2004, International Fund for Animal Welfare, they looked into they did their first ever research to find that what's happening online. And in 1 week survey, they found that nearly 9,000 wildlife products and specimens and wild animals were for sale on internet. There were more than 122 traders who were doing online wildlife trade. So this shows that from 1990 to 2004, you can imagine the damage that have already been done. Afterwards, there were some laws and regulations to curb the wildlife trade or online wildlife crimes which are happening. So it shows that this problem is global, and because you are connected on internet, it's very easy for a person sitting in Pakistan to order something from Malaysia or Thailand, and it will be delivered to you. We have seen that how the parrots are put into the bottles and they are being translocated to some other places. So this is how the internet is playing its role in this modern time. And so therefore, if a wildlife crime is happening in Pakistan, and if it is online, then Pakistan is equal to Hong Kong, and this thing is equal to world because everything is global and it's available on just one click. So to address this issue, we did our research. One of my MPhil students, Aruj, she did a research on the online wildlife crimes which are happening in Pakistan. Because when we look at the location of Pakistan, it has become a nexus for many wildlife crimes due to its geographic position. And at the same time, this is an understudied and undocumented subject in this region. And it is causing a major loss to the biodiversity in Pakistan. And at the same time, different species are being imported into Pakistan also. So it means that even if something is happening maybe in Hong Kong or maybe in China or Malaysia or Thailand, and if that thing is being transported to Pakistan, so our loss, the loss is global. It is not limited to one country. So for this research, we collected data from Facebook, and as you can see in the picture, that we tried to collect as much data as possible, including the page or group from where we were getting this data, the geographic location, the description of the content, the number and shares and number of comments and a number of reactions on those comments, and how were the different contents of the comments which was available, and also the image content. And because when we look at the comments on these posts, there were different types of comments. Not everyone was against the crimes. Some people were justifying the crime based on the class of the animal. Some people were justifying the crime in the name of religion. So we divided overall comments into different categories, that was positive, negative, informative, or irrelevant comments. And in both positive and negatives, we had comments which were encouraging. In the negatives, we had the comments which were encouraging the wildlife crime, or they were supporting the people who were doing that wildlife crime. And also the people who were using the religion or wrong interpretation of the religion to support the wildlife crime. And we had the positives one, which were against the wildlife crimes, and the people which were using religious references and remarks on the protection, care, and benefits of wild animals. So we compile all this data, and then we look into different types of crimes which are happening. It includes the illegal trade, animals being kept in captivity for entertainment, animals being killed, animals being captured, animals being tortured and used for entertainment, such as bear baiting or hunting by dogs. And then we also try to find that what were the reasons behind each and every crime. There were the main reasons that we found were people, they were just killing the wildlife for entertainment. Some people, they were killing the wildlife because of the fear, especially in the case of snakes. People, they were capturing wildlife to sell it to some other person or to get some money. Trophy hunting, which is a status, like to status symbol in Pakistan, and to put the trophies on our walls. Some people, they were just killing the species because of ignorance. If they saw a non-venomous snake, they will kill it because for them, a good snake is a dead snake. There were human-animal conflict problems, and animals, they were being killed because they attacked the livestock, or they attacked the house or poultry of the people. Road kills were there, and then the use of different species for the medicine. So our results indicated that the problem of wildlife crime in Pakistan is dead serious. From 2016 to March 2021, a total of 602 posts were shared, out of which they had more than 10,000 animals and around 140 species were subject to the wildlife crimes. And the highest number of posts, we have divided it according to their class, which is reptiles, reptiles, mammals, and birds. The highest number of posts were from the common krait that was being killed, followed by the Punjab Oriole, which is an iconic species of one of the provinces of Pakistan. And then the third one, in the birds, we had the highest number of posts were from the grey partridge, which is a game bird. And when we saw that how many animals are being killed, the highest numbers were from the rosy starling, which was 985 individuals were being killed in this time. Second was the spiny tail lizard, which is being used in making some traditional medicines in Pakistan. And third one was the Siberian ibex with 101 individuals. Class-wise, we have observed that there were 199 posts of birds, with more than 9,000 birds being victim of wildlife crimes, and it includes 61 species. For mammals, we had 206 total posts, with more than 460 mammalian animals with the 46 species. And the reptiles, the total posts were 197. And 775 total reptiles were there, and 32 different species were the part of this, the results. So then we observed that how people are reacting to these things, how people are reacting to these wildlife crimes, and here comes the interesting part. As you can see in this waffle chart, that when a snake is being killed, people were even showing love reactions, and they were even laughing at this thing. This shows our initial bias that we have towards wildlife in certain classes. When a bird was being killed, people were more angry. When a mammalian species were being killed, people were angry. But when a snake was being killed, the thing was very less proportion of the people, they were showing that reaction. And the same goes for the illegal trade and if they were being kept in captivity, if they were being captured, or if they were being tortured. So this shows our initial bias that we had when it comes to the human-wildlife interactions. So then we run a different generalized linear mixed model to see that how the people reaction is being affected by the type of crime, by the class of animal, and by the reason for which the crime is happening. And again, our results were supporting this thing, that the people's reaction was significantly less if a reptile is being killed, and they were more for the mammalian and the bird species. Similarly, if animal is being, the medicine has a clear effect. If they were being used by the medicine, people were more showing more reactions, because that thing is again linked with the economy and the myths which are being associated with these animals. So these are, this is a summary of all the results that we had. So overall, our research, the conclusion is this, that although an expansion in the digital world has changed the way the human and wildlife are interacting, however, the human bias towards certain classes and species, it is deep-rooted, and it is still playing a major role in this conservation. And I'm glad that someone took this initiative, because whenever we are talking about human-animal interaction, things are more focused on the companion and utility animals. But wildlife is often being ignored. And I'll share a post, a quote by an anonymous writer. And they said that those animals that are hardest to love need it the most. So that's it from my side. If you have any questions, you are more than welcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hawk, for your presentation. Concerning and at the same time really interesting with the that yes, most of the people, because we talk about conservation and animal protection, and yeah, people will directly think about the animals, like we said in one of the presentations, the umbrella species that everyone find interesting or beautiful. But we have to pay attention to all those species, especially the, like, we know that the insect represent the majority of the wildlife, and we almost never talk about their conservation, the protection of the soil and things like this. So yeah, thank you for your presentation. So yeah, we have one question. Sorry, we are running a bit out of time, so maybe we won't have too much time. But the question is, have you seen any difference in attitude of people living in different countries toward wildlife? If yes, what can be the reason, you think, of this different opinion about the
because
wildlife?
Because I used to live in Thailand before coming to Pakistan for my PhD. And in that society, I observed that there was a clear fear when it comes to snakes. No one even, as the picture which I can see at the back of yours on your banner. So the people, they don't want to even hear about snakes or look at snakes. And this thing is also present in our society. But here they were not using the religious explanation for those, but in different countries, the explanation might be different. But the people, they have biases toward different species. Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, so we will have to move to the next speakers. But thank you, Dr. Rehan, for your participation and taking some of your time today to present. It was highly appreciated.
Thank you so much.